Testing. Okay. All right, folks, we're going to get started here. The Monday, June 26, 2023 meeting of the Marquette City Commission is now called to order at 6 p.m. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hanley.
Here.
Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Ottaway.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stonehouse.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Here.
And Mayor.
Here. Thank you. All right. Everyone is in attendance. That brings us on to the approval of the agenda. Commissioners, we have an agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion on it? Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
I move we approve the agenda with the removal of item 5E GEI change order.
Okay. And do I have a second on that? Commissioner Ottaway?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis? Commissioner Ottaway? Okay. Any other discussion from the commission? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I have no announcements for this evening. That's going to bring us to boards and committees. We have one appointment and two reappointments this evening. Commissioners, do we have a motion on the appointments? Commissioner Hanley?
I move that we appoint Stephen Swentek to the Local Officers Compensation Commission for an unexpired term for ending 8/1 of 29. And I move that we reappoint Michael Potts, Harbor Advisor Committee, for a term ending 6/1/26, and Dennis Hodge to the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority for a term ending 7/1 of 26.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanley. Do I have a second? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Second, Your Honor.
Commissioner Hanley, any comment?
I would just like to thank everyone for all of the wonderful work they do on our boards and committees. It's always nice seeing people getting reappointed and wanting to continue to serve.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Thank you for being willing to serve.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, that brings us to our first public comment of the evening. As a reminder to the public comment may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please clearly state your name and physical address prior to giving your comment. And feel free to approach the center podium.
Hello, Barb outside, 1324 North Front. Here to talk about the sauna business. And actually, I know all of you know how I feel about it, so I won't bore you with reiterating what I wrote in the email. I actually wanted to, are you guys the sauna people? I wanted to address this, the people with the company itself, because, you know, really when I think about this, I know I'm like the self-appointed safety person, you know, but, you know, I just can't imagine that this is a terrible location for this. And I think, honestly, I like the idea. I think it's a really cool idea. But if you were to just even walk along that lakeshore border between where, you know, people are going to be coming into the water, and just walk there with bare feet, you would notice that it's a very unstable shoreline. There are areas that are visually hard to see, and there's debris from the river. And I just imagine, you know, an overzealous, heated individual wanting to experience the exhilaration of cold water after being heated up in a sauna and dashing in there and getting impaled on, you know, a stick or a log. It's just, you know, I think it's great that the city wants to accommodate the business. I really do. I think it's a cool thing, but I really think it's just a really bad place. And I'm more or less addressing you guys, and that's really about it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment?
Hello, my name is Nancy Ushold, and I live at 3084 Island Beach Road. And I'm also commenting on the sauna. And I agree with the previous speaker that it's an awesome idea in a terrible location. I just heard of it recently, and so took a walk down there just about an hour ago, less than an hour ago, to just assess it. Because I don't walk down in that particular location a lot, but I'm a swimmer and a kayaker, so I've definitely kayaked up that river. And every time you go, it's different because the current changes, the river mouth changes, the depth changes, the shoreline changes. So it is it's a dynamic environment because it's a river mouth with lots of currents. And last time I kayaked in the fall, you had to actually go under the chute where they, the conveyor belt where they unload the ore docks. You have to actually, it's only deep enough, to go that way. So that means the current is going to shoot anybody who gets stuck in it to the ore dock. So if somebody gets stuck in the current, and we had very high water this spring, making that especially dangerous location in the spring. As a swimmer, it's a completely unappealing place to swim. As the previous person noted, it's a very narrow beach. It is an unstable shoreline. It's very murky. In some places it's shallow for a bit, then with a steep drop-off. Some places it's a steep drop-off right from the get-go. So it's just a dangerous, it's a hard place to predict what's going to be. So the other thing that's really interesting, there's signs there saying dangerous currents, no swimming. So I'm not sure what has changed that has made people think it is now not a dangerous area and the currents are gone and swimming is a good idea. But those signs are still there. And in addition, it's an ecologically sensitive area. There's signs there that say there has been $650,000 spent in recent years on restoration efforts. And they have been very successful. There's a lot of different plants. I'm not a botanist. I don't know all about the ecological area, except for I'm good at reading signs. And so if we've just invested $650,000 in grants to restore this area, encouraging a lot of traffic, foot traffic, is going to be really impactful in a negative way. And so we would like to protect our investment. So yeah, great idea, terrible location. I hope we find a better location for it because I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Hello, I am Brandon Frisk with Sound on Kuma. I live on 411 East Ridge Street. I do have a petition of support of over 300 signatures that I'm going to hand over to Kyle right now. And while I do want to just make it clear that we did not propose this location, I know that there has been, in the last couple of weeks, there has been some issues and some valid that we agree with, especially when it comes to the dune grass and when it comes to, making sure that everybody is safe and that we're swimming in a safe location. But the Parks and Rec Department, we've been working with them for over a year, developing different possible locations, and this is what is recommended by our Parks and Rec Department, the people who oversee all of our public spaces. They have been working with the fire department, they've been working with the local police department to recommend places that they deem safe. So I would just like to reiterate that this isn't something that we have just decided is the best location because we want it. We've been working very, very strongly and very, very thoroughly with our departments in the city of Marquette. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody realized that on the public record, and that's all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else for public comment?
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. Much to discuss tonight, Each of you has received my email with attached pictures of the area in question regarding the sauna. Also with the experience I had at the Harbor Advisory Committee. I understand that you may not have had the minutes from the Harbor Advisory Committee, but I included a link in there to what the reporter said about the meeting, and that their recommendation was very simple, which is great idea, wrong location. And I had never been to a meeting of the Harbor Advisory Committee before, and I was incredibly impressed by the personal and professional knowledge of each member and how they listened and made some of the same points that are made here, and also made another point, which I was not aware of, is that the current changes so badly that people come out from the kayak launch and the canoe launch, and they don't know what they're going to encounter when they come into the lake. They have to be on their lookout because they can never be sure what they're going to encounter. Yesterday when I went out there, I used my dog walking app. It's 100 yards from the parking lot to the beach. They intend to have one employee watching the sauna and one employee watching the beach. I don't know what your best time is in the 100-yard dash. I know what my best time is. And I also know that the yesterday was all wet and miserable, and the ground was mucky. And there's no place for them to wash their feet when they get out of the, anyway. So you've got my comments in writing. In addition to that, has some really good news. Professor Putman from NMU has some progress to report on her work with hemp, and I'm going to yield some of my time to her, but it's like the bestest news in the world, and I'll let her tell the story, and then we'll hang around to the end for second final comments if you have any more questions. In my own life, tomorrow at Northern Michigan University Whitman Building, which used to be the Whitman School, at 1:30 and at 3:30, there's going to be off-leash dog training facilitated by a dog behaviorist from UPAWS. I've issued invitations to all local law enforcement agencies. This morning, the invitations included the DNR and Eagle, anyone who encounters off-leash dogs. My kitchen table right now is just engulfed with leashes and pillowcases and things you would need if you encountered an off-leash dog. All of you are invited to attend. It's not just limited to people in the police services. If you're interested, I did not know this till I started working with UPAWS, is that they have a contract with all the municipalities in this area to deal with off-leash dogs that are collected and brought to them. So your tax dollars are at work in this. And I'm very, very excited that this is happening, and I wish you to join us, because I think it's going to be positive no matter what. It's one of those things I think moving forward. And without further ado, here's Professor Putman to update you.
Leslie Williams, 124 Blemhuber Avenue. Williams is my legal name. Professionally, I go by Putman. As Professor Brum mentioned, I'm the one doing research with hemp and PFAS. PFAS stands for poly and perfluoroalkyl substances and includes thousands of different chemicals. Not all of them are known to be toxic. PFOS is one that has been tested and found to have adverse health effects. PFOS is what I will be using in my research. Thanks to Margaret's personal fundraising efforts, we have 9 above-ground planters set up in Northern's hemp garden and filled with soil ready to grow hemp plants. I have obtained a permit from Michigan's Department of Agriculture and Rural Development to grow hemp there. I have obtained seeds for fiber hemp from a supplier who also supplies the MSU Extension Farm with their hemp seed, so the varieties are known to grow in this area. They are also known to contain less than 0.3% THC. The plan is to grow hemp in the above-ground planters and water some of them with landfill leachate that contains PFOS, and with others we will mix sludge containing PFOS into the soil, and of course some will be left untreated as controls. Preliminary experiments have shown that hemp can take up PFOS from the growing medium. We will collect all leachate from the planters and analyze it for PFOS, and at the end of the growing season, we will harvest the hemp plants and test them for PFOS. At NMU, we have an instrument that can measure PFOS down to the ppb level, parts per billion. To accurately measure smaller concentrations, parts per trillion level, there are additional procedures required, and a dedicated instrument is needed to address the high background levels of PFOS. Eventually, Marquette, along with all the other cities, will have to report the amount of PFOS that they are releasing into the environment. The state and the EPA only accept results from certified labs. Although with my testing, I can determine whether hemp is able to take up PFOS from the soil. In order for it to be an acceptable treatment option, the water that leaches out of the soil will have to meet the state's standards as determined by a certified lab. For this reason, Margaret has made efforts to secure funds for these more expensive tests, which run $375 per sample. She already has a donor who is willing to pay for the first 10 samples. However, she needs the city county to establish an account to which the donor can deposit funds. The wastewater treatment plant has agreed to send out samples for testing and bill this account once it is established. I would like to encourage the city to work on establishing this account so that the donor can deposit the money there. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment? Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. That brings us to our first presentation of the evening, which is with the Local Development Finance Authority by Chair Leslie Hartman.
Yeah. Well, good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having us here this evening to do a presentation on Innovate Marquette Smart Zone and the LDFA and our role. A couple of new commissioners. First off, I'd like to invite any of the commissioners, Mayor Pro Tem, to come to our office anytime. We'd be happy to have you there. And any of the new commissioners, if you'd like to come over and see what we're doing, we're right at the Flagstar Bank building, right across the street. Happy to have you over. Set up anytime. Okay, move forward. What I want to start off with in our presentation tonight, this is a logo list of all of our clients who are actively working with. There are many more that are in the process of, but these are actual clients that are businesses that have been started and are in progress, working through incubation or acceleration, or have commercialized and are in the public space. So there's many here on the list. And there's a lot more detail behind all this, but for this particular purpose and time that we have tonight, here's a list of all of them, their logos. This is our metrics page. We worked really hard in the LDFA meetings to develop this metrics page. And I did add some additional comment and some other material that I sent with this material to break down what these metrics mean. But I can just do a quick summary here for you, and then we can ask any questions on that. We have 5 main types of clients that we've identified that we work with at Innovate Marquette Smart Zone. New tech startups or brand new businesses, existing startups that are already developed that may be seeking funding or maybe seeking additional support, existing local businesses that want to pivot with a new tech venture and expand, existing tech ventures that are expanding or reshoring to Marquette that want to use our resources to expand here in the local region, as well as angels, VCs, and general investors as a whole. Those are our 5 types of clients that we attract or outreach to at Innovate Marquette Smart Zone. The first column there is actually our attraction efforts. So these are outreach events, attraction events, and things that we've done in the community, like will be listed in this conversation later on. But like Innovation Week, Women in Entrepreneurship, our tech talks, all of those things. And that's the actual number that we've performed to attract those specific type of clients to our organization. And you see a quarterly number and then a year-to-date summary there. If any year-to-date summary, now these are driven by the MEDC, and these are metrics that we report to the state as part of our state funding. If anything in that box there were to be red, that would mean we were behind on that metric. Anything in purple means we're exceeding that metric. So just a little bit of clarification on that. The second bucket is actually how many, through those attraction events, how many clients of those type we've actually brought into our organization and provided services to. So when we look at our metrics there, you see Quick Explorers is actually a process where a client comes in and we actually onboard them into Innovate Marquette Smart Zone. And then clients in acceleration, that's where they transition to an acceleration. So that's a number up and down. You can see year-to-dates and then quarterlies. And then connections made obviously in the bottom there. The next is actually our outcomes. So our startup outcome and a CSP is a customized service plan. So they made it through the Quick Explore and validation process and went on into incubation. And then there's your numbers and your year-to-dates on all of that. Local tech jobs created 1099 or W2, 9 in the quarter, 37 year-to-date. New tech ventures created 3 in the quarter, 11 year-to-date. New ventures created or moved to the area, 1, 12 year-to-date. And you can see the funding on the bottom. The previous year is in the final column showing year-to-date last year versus this year. You can see our progress there. Significantly on the bottom there is pretty significant in terms of the actual value and generated revenue to the city of Marquette. And that will, based on projections now, of course, across the next rest of the year, last quarter, should be some additional significant improvement there. This is how we track all of our metrics for the organization. We had many work sessions with LDFA and our own board to really drill these down and organize our whole entire organization around these metrics on our attraction department, our services department, and all of our outcomes for the state. And we are far ahead of our state required metrics right now. Oh, sorry. Any questions on that? Apologize. Everybody okay?
Commissioners, any questions regarding this section?
Discussion.
And any further detail, please contact me and I'll take you through it in detail. And I will update every time we do a state metrics update. I do a CEO update and include those metrics in a CEO letter to the commission. And I'll do that every time, and it's a quarterly thing. Our IMQD outcomes, I like this. This is really our attraction efforts and what we do in the community. And you can see a whole bunch of information here. I'm not going to go through everything, but there were a lot of events that we had. Some notable ones. Women in Entrepreneurship was a very successful event. We doubled the amount of people this year to last year and the amount of women entrepreneurs that came to that event. Our Tech Talks had had over 100 people there. And then we obviously did Innovation Week with NMU, and that'll be a cornerstone event every year that we'll do with NMU and the SISU Institute. Hopefully, many of you got to enjoy that. Marketing brief. Our marketing focus now really is driving our client stories out. So you'll see on TV6 and many other media channels, actual success stories of our clients who are out in Marquette now actually running their businesses. This is kind of the final piece of our attraction effort where we've actually taken new businesses, run them through our process, got them out in the community, got them funding and launched their products. Swim Smart is another great example, a beachfront safety company now, which has partnered with Code Blue from Lower Michigan to create beachfront safety systems. They just got a $200,000 grant through the DNR to be able to do the whole Grand Haven beachfront this summer, and they're actually working on that now. So all of these examples of these success stories are now being used in our marketing attraction campaign to drive more entrepreneurs to our region and bring entrepreneurs from our community. And there's a lot of other initiatives and things that we're working on in terms of improving our media, marketing, everything. Any questions on this? None? Okay. Last quarter, this is our last quarter outlook. Talked about some things over there. There's a full report here if you want to click it in the presentation that shows every single media and outreach that happened. And then you can see some of the progress in the bottom on the analytics. 30 mentions, 3.453 million people clicked on or saw Innovate Marquette Smart Zone in the media and on our socials. And then in terms of publicity by media type, about $5.4 million in marketing and publicity, which was actually, we didn't, that's non-ad spend on our part. That's actually what the value of that for our organization. Any questions on that? Okay, so the most part, generally we'll want to focus on just some highlights on the front part of it and then onto our financials. So I did put together a profit loss and the standard financial model plus our budget. And I did a full detail there. I also sent the full year-end audit to all the commissioners as well. Everybody got that? So you can review that as well for what they came up on our yearly audit. This is a rolling yearly financials. And I do have more detail far beyond this if you'd like to see anything beyond it. So any questions on our profit and loss by class? No? Had a great year so far. Anything on our balance sheet? You can see if you look at some of these actually in terms of the grant dollars that have come in the organization are pretty significant. That's something you want to track. About $500,000 in grant funding so far. And those were, I don't know if you're familiar, 2 federal grants that we got. One was an EDA grant, which is only we were one of 5 rural communities in the country to get. And then the RISE grant, we were one of 3 in the country to get that grant. End of the balance sheet. Right now, as an organization, there's a lot of grants that are coming right now in terms of rural development. So we specifically are in a good cash position as an organization to match those grants. Many of those grants, like one, for instance, right now, we're doing an outdoor innovation asset mapping grant. We're writing with QPAD right now. It's a $350,000 grant to asset map our whole entire region for outdoor recreation, outdoor innovation assets. As part of that grant, we have a 20% match. That's an $80,000 match. So to bring that $400,000 into our region to do that full assessment on what we should do with those assets and resources and provide that for outdoor innovation as part of this outdoor innovation movement that we're working on, we have to cash match that. So we're in a great financial position right now to cash match grants that 4x our value. So when you look at our cash balance, there is a big cash balance there, right? But that cash balance has been strategically placed there so that we can actually, at an 80-20 leverage, over $16 million in grants immediately. And that's what we're working on right now. There's also another EDA grant, which is the follow-on grant to our last grant, was a $2.5 million grant. That's a 60-40 match. So that would require us to match a pretty significant amount of dollars in that grant. Now, there are community partners that we partner with that can carry some of the burden of those grant matches. But for us to be able to pull the trigger on that immediately and be at the highest ranking within those state and federal grant dollars, because they're based on how much you can cash match, puts us in an amazing position over the next 2 years. There's another program right now, you may have seen it, we talked a lot about it. I'm working with the Marquette Board and Light and Power in a really cool program right now. There is a state grant program coming out that's going to require an 80-20 match for that project. It's probably a $3 million ask. So it's a $600,000 potential community partnership matching to get that $3 million. So that's really why we're positioned where we are right now, and I'm really happy to be there. Our budget, this has been standard. We run our budget every year. We're in budget mode now for 2024. We have to have the budget set up for the LDFA and for our own board by the end of this year, and we'll be able to present that by opening day of our next year. This is how our budget looks. We do have a lot of cool capital items on the bottom of there that we allocated funds towards too as well. One notable one there is the Make It Marquette, working with the city on that, and then many others there that are listed to support. Any questions?
We'll probably just ask questions when you're finished with the presentation portion.
All right. Yeah, got it. Perfect. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Perfect cue, really.
Yeah, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Okay. Yes, thank you, Joe and Leslie, although you have to hear from Leslie. I am really appreciative of the metrics that you provided, and it's really nice to see the increase in the local tech jobs created and the new tech ventures created. So thank you so much for doing that. We as commissioners have to worry about that $400,000 that we have in our budget to support, from the LDFA, to support all of these projects. And so as we answer questions in the community, it's helpful for us to be able to truly identify some of the things. So as you report on outcomes, I see activities like the Women in Entrepreneurship and the Innovation Week and activities, but I consider them activities towards a goal or objective, and it would be really nice to work towards true outcomes that we can really help us to understand the value of the money that we provide to the organization, and for us to be able to convey that to the public.
Sure. And we actually have a listing of all the organizations that we've supported. I mean, one very notable one is KMI. You'll see them here presenting at TV6. KMI just received federal grants from NASA and from others. I believe that Innovate Marquette Smart Zone was pretty instrumental in keeping them in Marquette and supporting them and continuing to support them. You can have a lot more detail on that in the space they're required now. We supported them there. We did a lot to ensure their presence and maintain their presence. We did support other ventures as well that are notable in the community, and we can absolutely, so when you see those outcomes that we're talking about and that media outcome, then you'll see those coming out, but there are many.
So, I'm looking forward to having some more detailed outcomes. And Leslie, I think you were wanting to say
I was going
something.
to ask, just to make sure that I understand the question in its entirety. So for instance, at the Women in Entrepreneurship, I know I've heard stories on, people that reached out to the speakers after the event and saying your your presentation was so valuable, it's giving me better ideas so that I can come forward with my idea. Is that what you're saying, like measure the outcomes from the events, or just?
If we could go back to what the LDFA purpose is and match those with true outcome objectives to find out what has been accomplished, that would be helpful to me as a commissioner. I do have another comment for you, though, and I noticed, I went back to look at our LDFA committee, and I noted that we're supposed to be consisted of 11 members, and right now we only have 5. So we certainly are short. 7 of those 11 members should be city appointed. So, we as commissioners need to try to encourage people who are interested in this sort of opportunity to join your board. So, we should have 7, but we only have 2 from the city. So let's work on that. So let's work on recruiting some of the members of the board too.
And I will add a detail to our presentation, and I'll follow back up with outcomes, because there are a bunch of them to be proud of. I'd like to share that with you. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Smith?
I think it would be helpful if we had a brief reminder either from Leslie or maybe our city staff as to what the LDFA is and does and how that connects to the Smart Zone. But I do want to say I'm really impressed with the presentation and the metrics. I think it might help us to kind of understand. It's so hard because we come from a world where we are very held accountable to the voters, to the taxpayers, to organizations and other governmental agencies that we work with. And it's your job to kind of be a dreamer and try to make these things happen. And we have to find a way to communicate so that we can understand how these dollars are helping that mission. And I think we're getting there. So thank you for the work you have done. I think it's just going to continue to get more easy to understand and have a shared language from here. But I'm hoping we can maybe bring it back and kind of connect those dots a little bit for the broader public. And so we all remember how it all flows.
And I'm happy if someone else wants to weigh in or correct me, but the LDFA is the oversight committee. So we have quarterly meetings, and we distribute the funds to the Smart Zone so that they operate the Smart Zone for us on our behalf. But we are the oversight, and so we get their financials, their audited financial report, which was a clean audit. I just wanted to make that mention too for the public. And so we are very, we are aware as well, just on the fiscal responsibility for those funds and making sure that, we're spending the dollars in the city and trying to recruit the positions and jobs and keeping everything in the city too as well.
And they also do oversee our state metrics that we report to them as well. So we put about a 70-page report together every quarter for the state too, for the state funds. Is about next year about $1.2 million will come from the state, and to be partnered with that $400,000 from the city for us to build our whole entire budget out of. And they distribute and oversee all of those funds per our agreement.
Thank you. And Your Honor, if we could maybe just see if the city manager wants to weigh in, she doesn't have to, but you could see her kind of leaning towards the microphone. Thank you.
I want to say that Leslie had covered that explanation, but just to also clarify that the LDFA is really in control of those tax increment financing, those revenues that come in from that capture. And that is only a certain percentage of what the Smart Zone actually has within their operating revenues. So it's a small component, but it is this kind of gray area of city captured funds, not just our 400,000, but then also the $1 million that does come from beyond that, but then also then the Smart Zone with the money that they receive from the state. And it's kind of it's a much bigger operation than just even what we see within our LDFA boundaries when we talk about the Smart Zone and then the impact beyond that as well.
And I know, just from my perspective, when I first joined the board, I don't think anyone understood the grants opportunities that would be available. And so I know that Joel and his team has worked really hard on getting, help from grant writers and just being able to achieve that. I think that's just a really awesome bonus that wasn't predicted, in my opinion.
And we have some amazing staff on our team that we've recruited. And that's really hugely important for our organization and for the city to have really talented individuals that have a long history of success in this space to be able to be mentors and help our entrepreneurs in the region.
I don't know who had their hand up first. Commissioner Larson, then Ottaway.
Thanks for the presentation. I've got loads of questions, but they're probably better suited just to
Great.
having a sit down at some point in time. But
Amazing.
I guess the one that I will ask is, when you take a look at what's being accomplished in Marquette, are we on par with other smart zones that might be around the state? Do we have room to grow? Are we lagging? I guess your general assessment of that.
I would say prior to my arrival, we were lagging a bit, to be totally honest with you. I would say we were lagging probably a couple of years. Since I came and built the team, I think we've accelerated that, and then now we're actually on the leading edge of where a smart zone should be in its progression as we are today. And I think that we're being recognized in the state as a leading smart zone in our practices and principles and what we're doing. Notably in our quarterly meetings with the MEDC being on the top list of most entrepreneurs, most new businesses, most funding coming in, biggest announcements on those kind of things, based on our population. If you were to look at our smart zone versus an Ann Arbor Spark or another very highly populated, densely populated space with a lot of investment, we're punching way above our weight, 100%, no question in my mind. And that these things, if you look at Boulder, you look at other innovation ecosystems, not in rural regions, these are 15-year pathways to really show those exits. What we want to see is we want to see entrepreneurs that come in, get through the process, get out, start generating revenue, and then have some type of equity event or investment event, and we're seeing that now. Then those continue to build and grow, and then they reinvest in the community again, and then we have larger exits. So if you look at Ann Arbor Spark, it's a $2.5 billion exit for dual security. That's a big deal. That's a 15-year progression path to have that kind of outcome in those hundreds and hundreds of jobs that would create in the community growth that it would create. So we're punching way above our weight for our size of community. We're finding really creative ways. Smart zones are tied to universities that are research institutions. Okay, so an M-Tech smart zone and Michigan Tech, a University of Michigan smart zone, those smart zones have a constant flow of tech transfer coming in from university. We don't have that all the time, and we've had very few actually tech transfer ideas that have come from Northern Michigan now. Great things to hear today about the hemp and other things going on over there, and we have a couple of tech transfers that have popped out. So not only is our university also kind of lagging in the tech transfer side, where we have to really be creative in our own reaching out to our community to find these ideas, or even in some cases cultivate the ideas internally with our entrepreneurs to bring them into the tech space. We have community members now. If you would talk to John Bennett from Bennett Media and others, you will see that we've been really creative on utilizing our existing businesses to pivot them with really cool tech ideas as well. So we're really kind of have to be creative and have to work really hard, more than you normally would if I've got University of Michigan sitting in my back door. Honest assessment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you so much for the presentation. It was very informative. As somebody that's new to the board, just learning more about the Smart Zone, learning more about just kind of what your role has been over the years, speaking with Karen about it. It's helpful to hear all of this and kind of see where you guys are going. My only question I have for you at this point really is more of a long-term question. So what's going to happen when the TIF plan ends, and is the Smart Zone going to be viable without the city's
Absolutely.
money? Is that the plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. So multiple answers to that question. One is we're now moving forward with our first investment fund. We've been asked to move forward for a $3 million pre-seed fund, which will actually have interest back into it to help us grow. We've also shown enough progress now, and the state has just done a huge assessment of the state of Michigan on entrepreneur ecosystem, innovation ecosystem around the state. And there is a lot of confidence that the state will continue to fund beyond our end of our TIF capture life. We are set up right now to be fully sustainable by that end date, either way. We have set up contracts and work with the LDFA with all of our entrepreneurs coming in to have success fees that come back to our organization for what we contribute to those entrepreneurs. For instance, Swim Smart Tech, right? Now Progress On got a $200,000 grant, now doing a full beachfront. When they expand and grow and get all the DNR contracts for the state and generate, $20, $30 million in revenue, we have a piece of that revenue. And every single entrepreneur who moves to our organization from here forward will have a piece of that revenue from here forward in the way we set up our contracts. And that's a very standard thing. We haven't had revenue generating entrepreneurs, very many up to this point, but we have many now. So we built ourselves in there. We've also built ourselves into the fund, and then we've also built ourselves into other grants that are longer term grants too, that will also continue to. There are some bigger grants that are coming out that do have 5-year and 10-year roadmaps to them. So we will apply for those and look for those dollars as continued success. Also, when you look at the grants that we were awarded now, is when we are successful on those grants, there is follow-on funding for that as well. And same thing with the fund. So the first round of the fund is $3 million, the Outdoor Innovation Fund. That's a state-funded fund. We put a whole team of experts together to run and manage with partnership with InvestUP. There is follow-on funding for that as well. And the second stage of that would then be an actual venture capital fund. So if you look at Boulder, there's probably 10. There's Rocky Mountain Ventures, there's all these VC firms and things. They attract this VC dollars and investment dollars. We want to be a pipeline for outdoor innovation ideas, sustainable tech ideas, and tech art and tech creative ideas in our community, and build a pipeline of investment that comes in to help those early stage entrepreneurs get through the pathway and get $7,500, $50,000 investments through this first fund. That launches them off to then be able to then reinvest back into our community too. So absolutely by our end date, we plan to be self-sufficient. But there are also, I believe that the state, based on our success and the payback to the state for these smart zone concept and what we've done, they will continue to invest.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? Okay. I would just say for starters that, you know, compared to last year, the level of information and metrics you have provided us, it really is like a night and day difference. And I genuinely do appreciate that. And I think some sentiment was shared here in the commission regarding that. It's a whole lot of information to also give us. And it sounds like maybe you're going to be giving us some more too here. But I think I make it over to your guys' building probably once a month. And I really do enjoy interacting and talking with a lot of the entrepreneurs that are there and some of the stuff they're working on. It's always kind of exciting for me when I see a couple months down the road a news article that one of them got a big grant or actually kickstarted one of their projects finally, and I'm like, hey, I kind of knew about that. Mm-hmm. Really great work I think you guys are doing though, and I can visualize on the horizon that path that you're working on, that goal you're aiming for. And you might have expressed it and I just missed it, but do you think it's possible to put like an end stamp on when you think you would need the city fund, for example?
Yep.
Or is it uncertain still?
Well, what we did this year, we actually allocated $60,000 out of our budget back to a plan to work with the city on some marketing stuff and some diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. We plan to, over the next years in the course, find really great ways to start to transition that back over time. And I think that was a good start. I think there's a lot of other good ideas that we can work on together with the city to do that. In terms of our existing budget, I feel that we're pretty stabilized with our team and with our budget. And I think the state funds and the city funds are adequate for us to continue to grow. I think with additional grant dollars and things that we'll continue to build onto, I would personally like to encourage over the next 4 or 5 years that we work on more opportunities to be able to support other efforts that are important to the city that have to do with our mission and the city's mission and combine goals together to ensure that we do just that. And I'll continue to focus on other things. We talked about the Marquette Board and Light and Power Building. That could be a really amazing opportunity for us to put together a transitional assembly facility there. I think that's another great partnership with the city and entities. And I think that those dollars could be utilized there too, because we can spend dollars on infrastructure to expand our tech hub. And any opportunity where we have a building that's available that can be reutilized for something else like that to continue to be a component of our innovation ecosystem. That is a missing component of our existing ecosystem that we really need to fill to retain our entrepreneurs here more. KMI is going to need that space, right? They're growing, they're about ready to jump to probably some more employees. They're going to need to expand to a bigger facility that has more technological accommodations for them. So I think it's the communication now, I think we can be open and communicate about how we best utilize those dollars for the community as a whole, and what types of infrastructure or other types of things we can do to help support entrepreneurs here.
And let me ask you this while we got you. Is there a theme you've noticed with your entrepreneurs an area specifically that is making it harder for that job or business creation to exist here in Marquette?
I mean, there's three essential components to a successful entrepreneurial business in my mind. It's pretty simple, straightforward. A resilient entrepreneur. We've got a great program right now where we're making our entrepreneurs resilient enough to make it through this process, which is far exceeds what it was before. This is a major burnout. It's hard for people to start a business, grow a business, keep their family going, everything, all the other obligations they have. I mean, look at Britta Carlson, for instance. I mean, single mom, running her facility, doing all these things. So that's there. The mentorship now, we've got that too, right? So the mentorship piece is super important, second component. We've got a great mentorship base. We're continuing to expand and grow that mentorship base until we can assist entrepreneurs to make good decisions as they grow. The final is capitalization. The biggest hurdle right now, and we have two programs that we're running right now. One of the grants allowed us to put together a micro gifting platform, which you'll see that we partner with Northern Michigan University and the foundation on, to access a huge crowdfunding base for really early stage capital. We actually built a whole brand new software platform to do that and bring entrepreneurs into that to get that early stage capital, so that I'm not losing clients at $100, $150 for validation, right? The next phase is this pre-seed fund. This is a $3 million fund that gives $75,000 to $150,000 investments for pre-seed, right? Those are essential things. And you've talked to almost every entrepreneur we have, why they left and went down to Ann Arbor or went to California or went to Colorado, right, is because they need to get funding. We have so many entrepreneurs out there right now who are in different cities because they didn't have the ability to get $150,000 and stay here in City of Marquette. So that's that piece. And then the final one will be when we actually have a real fund where we can actually onshore technology. Moonbike is a great snowmobile bike right now. You can check it out. We've got in our basement. Part of our grant was to actually purchase it and test it and check it out. It's a French company. They want to relocate and reshore here to Marquette. I don't have a technology park. I don't have a VC fund. Those are the final two components that we'll need to actually onshore outdoor innovation companies to our region. Shop House Park, we made huge headway with them. We got $3 million from the MSF to get that set. We've been helping Dave Olola since day one to try to really help cultivate that progress to be a testing center, outdoor innovation center here in Marquette. Those are the two final components, is having a true VC fund that can invest $1 million to $5 million, or at least access to with confidence in our pipeline to be able to have investors feel comfortable investing in those. And we absolutely have to develop an industrial park here in Marquette if we're going to do it. 60 to 80 acres somewhere that's in a opportunity zone potentially that could be used for a site for an industrial park. That would be the final piece that if we put it in place, that we could bring Moonbikes and Omiyos and the ones that we've lost, right? Omiyo is a Segway wheelchair company, right, from New Zealand, wanted onshore to Marquette. They lost them to Arizona because they had all those components. So those will be our challenges over the next 5 years, is how do we continue to build this pre-seed fund, get a true VC fund and network here, and figure out a way to put an industrial park in place here that we can draw those companies in. And also for our own entrepreneurs to get to that point.
I think I am probably good. And maybe the last thing I would mention is I'm glad you did mention Shop House Park there briefly. I think because your organization is going to be critical, I think, in the months ahead for outdoor recreation innovation. And the Lieutenant Governor, I believe it was last week, made a rather loud statement in wanting to invest heavily in that sector. And I think Marquette and the entire region up here would benefit significantly from it if we could be one of the 5 areas that they want to focus that in, if not the area. But
that opportunity could tie the entire UP together. It's that big. And that's a big thing. In the past, traditionally, the Upper Peninsula has come together for great initiatives as a whole. And have something big enough and have enough impact on smaller communities and regions in also our region and all the way through the whole entire Upper Peninsula. And them seeing that, David has been focusing a lot of attention on, we need to be a partner asset to Detroit. And I know that sounds scary, and it's like, well, what are we going to do? But honestly, to be an asset for the state in mobility and outdoor innovation, outdoor mobility, is a huge opportunity for us in the UP, and to really drive a new economy in the Upper Peninsula that will support a whole heck of a lot of innovation and jobs, in my opinion. And that's why we're so focused on it. And we see that support from Lieutenant Governor. We see it from the new Outdoor Innovation Office. Now our Outdoor Innovation Office head is now on a federal head of a board for outdoor innovation. And David, we brought him in that grant as our entrepreneur in residence, specifically to be in those conversations all the time with the state and pushing for the UP and showing how important we are and how much of a great asset we can be. The reason we chose the second entrepreneur and innovation pathway in sustainable technology is because it's a double-edged sword. There's a whole bunch of opportunity in outdoor innovation and outdoor recreation, the asset that we have in the UP. There's also a huge opportunity to protect and make sure that we manage that correctly and sustainably.
Do you have any more questions or comments from the commission? Just final offer. All right, well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you
it,
being
yeah.
here. All right. With that, that brings us to our second and final presentation, which is the State of Michigan Marquette Veteran Home.
Hi. I'm going to see if I can make this work as planned. I almost want to apologize for not wearing heels today because I can barely see over the podium. So I think I'm taller than I am, and then I confront the City of Marquette's podium and realize that's not the case.
Mayor, if you don't mind, while she's pulling the presentation up,
Sure.
may I do a quick introduction?
Absolutely.
Sure. I do want to take a moment here to introduce Ann Zerby, the Executive Director for Michigan Veteran Homes. And with this recent news regarding the funding for a new build of a veteran home in Marquette, Ann had offered to present some more information on this news to the commission, and I think later at a later time in the future here to the community as well. In regards to what a new facility for the veterans would mean and our community, and kind of explain some of that. And just as a reminder, I believe it was back in March that the commission had approved entering into negotiations with the state to look at the Cliffs Dow site for a potential site. And I think that is a component of the presentation that you'll see here. Just kind of explaining that a little bit more visually and really trying to answer some of those questions that I think we're all getting about this recent news. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. And Ann Zerby.
Thank you. Nice to meet all of you. I'm going to keep it pretty high level today because I know we're still at the very beginning stages of having this discussion. But first, talking a little bit about the Michigan Veteran Homes overview, what we do. Most of you are familiar. The building is right around the corner. We've been operating here for 40 years, but we do operate other homes across the state. Marquette replacement, our current status, what's the timeline associated with the project, and some of the exploration we've done so far around Cliffs Dow as a potential site for that replacement project. So first of all, the benefit to veterans associated with state veteran homes. A huge part of it is it's a very tailored environment for the population that we serve. There are individuals that come to us that are staying with us that have different needs than you might see in a traditional skilled nursing operation, and we have the ability to tailor, train staff to meet those needs. Additionally, there are huge financial costs to the residents that come and stay with us. Many of our residents receive long-term care at no cost out of pocket to them. That is largely funded by the VA. But when you think about the cost, if anyone has put a family member in long-term care, that can add up tremendously over several years. And that is something that we've been able to provide, again, for the last 40 or so years at the DJ Jacobetti Home for Veterans. We've recently kind of changed some of our branding because we are operating more as an organization overseeing the veteran homes across the state as Michigan Veteran Homes. As I stated earlier, the current building that we're operating was constructed in 1954 as a former hospital. We purchased it in 1981, so we've been operating out of that facility for about 40 years now. 4-story building located on one city block. It's going to be more of, because it was built in a former hospital, it is that more traditional institutional model of skilled nursing. Leading into that, it kind of speaks to where we're trying to move towards. We've already engaged in a replacement project for our Grand Rapids home. This is a picture of that site. You can see in the background the old institutional hospital-like model of where we used to operate. And in the forefront, this is the new facility that we recently opened in 2021. It's going to be much more residential feeling, single-story construction, provides a much more home-like atmosphere for our members. So in terms of the funding status for the Marquette replacement project, which is next on the agenda for us, we knew we needed to accomplish this. The building is reaching the end of its useful life, and it's just time to start exploring what's next for for what we're doing here in the city of Marquette. So in the FY 22-23 budget cycle, the state of Michigan provided $34.2 million in funding. That's going to be the state match that we were required to secure before we could be considered for federal funding under a grant program that's available for these types of construction projects. We anticipated we would be high on that priority list. I don't know that we thought we would get the money so quickly. We were very hopeful, and we did. We just learned in the last 2 weeks that we received funding for the FY23 year. That's $63.4 million in funding for a total of $97.6 million for the construction of this project. That's going to include the design, but the vast majority of that is the actual construction of the project itself. Very exciting news. You know, you don't want to wait. We knew we wanted to move quickly on this, and so this enabled us to know we could do that. The timeline from here on out, because we did receive FY23 funding, we really needed to put the foot on the gas pedal in terms of getting a lot of this done. We were already teeing a lot of this up, but we are, in order to secure that grant, the conditional grant portion, going to need to submit environmental studies and conceptual design to the VA in August. Right now, we have performed and are scheduled to have those documents done for the Cliffs Dow site. It was some of the initial things that we were trying to work through in just assessing whether or not the site made sense for a project like this. In order to finalize that grant, we have a number of other things that are going to be due here in the next 6 months. It moves quickly. So to get that final grant, we're going to need to have final design, and we're going to need to have final bid documents and budget documents submitted to the VA. That is a significant investment in terms of design work and things of that nature. So it is very important, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, that we have certainty surrounding the site we're moving forward with, because there is no point in spending that amount of money on a site that we're not fairly certain is going to work for these purposes. Assuming everything continues to move along that schedule, we could be breaking ground, and we plan to break ground as soon as we can, as early in the construction season as we can next year in 24, and move forward. The other two projects we've already done took about 18 to 24 months from breaking ground to completion. Marquette is a little different. You have a slightly shorter construction time frame to work in, and we will talk about it, but the site has some other things we want to consider. And so I'm thinking this is probably going to take more in the 26 or 24 to 36 month time frame. Just being realistic, it's going to take a little longer, but we'll have more information once we get some of those final design documents done, and we're able to get that information back from some of our partners on the engineering side. So project concept, we already talked a little bit about this, but it is a long-term nursing care facility. It's going to serve 108 member residents. That is actually about the same size as the number of residents we're currently serving at Jacob Eddy post-COVID. Before we were certified to serve more. Post-COVID, there are some considerations where we downsized some units, we made some changes, and we feel that we're operating at about the right level right now, and so we're keeping that consistent moving forward. It will be single-story residential style design concept, and we're going to see some pictures because we've started doing some renderings, and I know pictures are what everyone loves. I'm a visual person as well, but the Central Community Center, which is kind of like the town center of this project, multi-purpose rooms, chapel, meditation space, a cafe bistro, physical therapy spaces. And it's going to be surrounded by 3 what we call neighborhoods. They're going to be where residents live, consisting of households of 18 members. There are kitchens right out there, no more mess halls and things like that. There are kitchens where you cook food right out there, out on the household, creates a much more home-like environment. So replacement project, the community center. These are some of the initial renderings based on our concept. That would be the community center right when you drive in off Lakeshore Drive. To give you a little bit of perspective of what this actually looks like, these are some pictures from our current buildings that we just constructed and opened in 21. So you can see the barber shop. On the bottom right, that's a picture of our main area in the front lobby with the bistro in the background and physical therapy space. Just kind of puts it in real life what it would actually look like. This is some renderings of the resident member neighborhood. So as you can see, more residential style, neighborhood concept. Again, pictures that we have from our current buildings. We would be planning 18-member households, as I mentioned earlier. Each have a living room, a den, a dining room. The food's prepared right there out in the household to just improve the experience of living in this type of environment. Resident households, additional asset to this type of design, which is different than what we currently have at Jacobetti, is all member rooms are private rooms with ensuite bathrooms. Not only, I think, is this a benefit to the residents themselves, but from an infection control standpoint, what we've discovered after COVID is this minimizes a lot of operational challenges when you have shared bathrooms and shared spaces, and helps us significantly with that. Then, although everything is medical grade fixtures, they have a residential feel. Every resident room, and this was something that was really meaningful to me because I think we can all say, living in Michigan, sunlight is our friend and we don't get enough of it. So we know that for mental health, having a lot of access to outdoor light is very important. Each of these member rooms has large picture windows, and again, on the first floor, so tons of access. This is going to be a picture of the actual site that we're discussing. I know you guys are very, very familiar and probably talk about it far more than you even want to, but this is the exact location that we are looking at. And where we are to date is we have completed phase 1 and phase 2 of the environmental studies. Those will be submitted to the VA for review by them. We've done all of this in close collaboration with Eagle as a partner. And we have completed the conceptual, or we will have by August 1 completed the conceptual site and building design for submission to the VA. So the first look, this is kind of our initial site design for that property. What we really like about it is it maximizes that lakefront view. Each of those 3 neighborhoods you can see surrounding the community center in gray. You're going to have a nice entrance off of Lakeshore Avenue. And again, I think what was really important to us is we're having members live in this, resident members live in this community. We want to maximize their access to that lakefront view. So we were able to incorporate a lot of that into the design. This is kind of a rendering of the same design. Something we thought was a significant advantage to the proposed plan based on a lot of the feedback we've been hearing. Actually, I would say more you guys have been hearing about the site over the course of many years. This is going to be a low capacity facility, which is going to be very different, I think, than some of the other development plans that have been proposed for the site. So about 154,000 square feet on 16 acres of property, and that's going to have 108 residents. Staff would also obviously be in the building. It's going to be low traffic and minimal impact to the surrounding area. Another thing that I think is very important, I mean, I come up here frequently and people here love their green space, and I think something that's really nice about this design is we've managed to really integrate a lot of green space, walking paths, things of that nature that also tie in really well with, as you can see, some of the city's plans for that lakefront moving forward. I believe you have an anti-erosion project, and we integrated that into the design as we were thinking through it. The construction approach we are taking, I think, is also a major, it's a significant advantage to this type of construction in the proposed plan because we would be using piling foundations on an elevated platform. That's going to minimize disruption to the soil in that area, and I think that's particularly relevant and important as we think through, what that lakefront looks like and how we protect it and make sure we're being good stewards of that land. Additional advantages. So interagency coordination with Eagle. We are fortunate, and I rarely say we're fortunate to work for state government, but I will say it in this case that we both work for state government. So we've had the ability to collaborate with Eagle, make sure that we're very well versed in terms of what the applicable state and federal regulations are, compliance with all of those, did a robust environmental assessment of the property. They have a long history and knowledge of the property, so we're able to utilize a lot of that to make sure it is appropriate for the intended use and that it fits in with kind of what the goals are for that property based on some of the feedback we've received. The other thing I think is a benefit is that because there is a restrictive covenant on that site, coordinating with Eagle enables us to make sure that that coordination is happening all the way through. There are no surprises, and we do what we need to do to make sure we can overcome any kind of restrictive covenant that is associated with the property. I will also say, based on, I guess, what we've been hearing, I know you guys have heard a lot more about the site than I have yet heard, but I'm sure I will hear more. We've heard broadly that there's community support for this type of project. So single-story design, serving a purpose and a mission that I think is close to everyone's heart in the community. I think there was a lot of feedback that we received within the community that, hey, we know not everything's within your control, but if you can try to find a way to keep the home in the city of Marquette, that would be something that would be really important to the community. So look, I'll be honest, there's not a lot of free land or available land, I guess I'll say, within the city of Marquette. And I think what was really nice is coming together with the city to explore whether or not that was going to be a viable option. Single-story design, again, I know I keep hitting on that, but I think a lot of people were concerned about multi-story design, the impact it would have on the land. And a lot of this for us too is minimizing some of that disruption for our current staff. We know that we're in a very competitive industry. We want to try to keep as much of our staff as possible, and that changing location that obviously impacts people's commuting times, things of that nature. So keep things as consistent as we can. The additional advantages, so this is something we haven't talked a lot about yet, or I don't believe we talked a lot about, but the proposal would be that we would engage with the city in a land swap for the existing Marquette Jacobetti property in downtown Marquette. Now, what I see as an advantage, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the city commission and the people you serve, you know best about what you want to do and what you most need in your community. I think this puts the power with you guys to make some of those decisions about what makes the most sense for the community to do with 7 acres of land in downtown Marquette that we will be vacating. I think that presents such an opportunity. And I think for me, you rarely get the opportunity where you see synergies and things come together where you think this is really gonna check a lot of boxes in terms of what we want to see accomplished over the course of this, which is to continue serving veterans in this community in a place that provides a high quality of life and can meet a lot of the needs of the community itself, because we will be vacating a piece of property that I think could be put to really good use. Additionally, and I know this was a lot of the feedback we got in terms of, we are not going to be a taxable entity, so we will not be in certain ways other than through jobs, be paying, providing revenue to the city. But having this piece of property, I think, presents some other opportunities where, depending on how it is used, could provide revenue potentially, I think, actually sooner than you would find revenue generated at the Cliffsdale site. So just very exciting opportunity. There's a lot of due diligence. I think we're going to have a lot of questions to answer. I think for us, especially given the population we serve, the veteran population who have had concerns or been exposed to things in the past, we wanted to make sure our due diligence on that property was extremely robust. We're going to continue to have conversations to make sure everyone is comfortable with this project moving forward, that it's an appropriate use. But I do think we'll continue to get questions. And as of right now, we feel very comfortable with what we've seen, that it would be extremely viable, a great use of that site. So next steps, we do need to, as I mentioned earlier, at some point, I think, have some type of letter of intent to ensure we're on the same page and that there's a commitment. There's a significant investment involved in getting through to final design and getting bids out there. And delays would cause delays in the project itself, which causes delays in having our veterans move into this new facility. And so I think there are multiple reasons why we want to solidify what our plan is, whatever it may be, so that we know how we should proceed with the project. So I don't know. I know I was supposed to do about 10 minutes, and Karen said there wasn't necessarily going to be time for questions. So I don't know. I'm going to rely on you guys to tell me what the next steps are. I had a question slide. I'm not saying I have to. That's just the standard that I put in there, but I was told there might not be time.
All right. I'm gonna give it to the commission here to see if anyone has any questions or comments initially. Commissioner Ottaway, I'm gonna throw it to you first, and then Commissioner Smith.
Thank you so much for just providing all of this info. I think this is actually way more info than I was expecting to see. I think it's awesome. I think it's great that you came ready to show us this. I guess the only question I have for you, because you've really, painted a great picture here, is what other sites is the state considering for the Veterans Home?
We've had a number of different folks approach us about different sites. We haven't gotten as far as we have with this site in terms of due diligence and environmentals. But all of the other sites we are considering are not in the city of Marquette. There is no acreage that's large enough. So we're kind of inching out from there into the township, and also we'll be looking at some sites in Negaunee Township as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to let the public know that as we are in ongoing negotiations for the sale or swap of the property and ongoing conversations about environmental, there are a lot of questions that we would love to ask, but we're not able to right now. So it's not like we're not doing
That's
our due
why I'm
diligence.
looking to you guys right now.
We are
so.
following the rules of procedure here. But I appreciate the kind of basic update, and there's more to come for the public.
Here's a general question I have. Hypothetically speaking, at least from your perspective here, what would be an ideal timeline for, like, the next step you had was letter of intent, just so we have an idea of where you guys are at?
We need a letter of intent signed probably in the next 45 days.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Thank you, Your Honor. Maybe way ahead of the game, but something that might be worth considering is having a good conversation with our local vets organizations towards the opportunity to have a Veterans Memorial in some fashion incorporated into the property. And I say that with a wide open sheet of paper here. I'm not advocating left nor right nor up nor down, beyond that it be considered from the beginning of the project rather than as an add-on we might do at the end of the project, if that makes
I think
logic.
that's an incredible idea, and actually we recently hired someone who specifically works on these types of projects. And so I'm gonna make sure I loop him in on this, because he actually used to be the administrator at Jacobetti, so he's very familiar with the area, so thank you.
There is already a memorial at Jacobetti, so I would be concerned that somehow that be an incorporated part of whatever comes about. But if you would consider it, I think it would be a good idea.
I think that's a great idea. And just for situational awareness, when we've had projects like this before, we had a site down in Grand Rapids that, we're operating a cemetery down there that was built right after the Civil War. So we are very used to dealing with memorials and monuments and making sure we integrate those in the plan. This is a little more challenging because in that case, we built right next door. But I think there are a lot of opportunities to make sure we both integrate kind of the history of the home that we are currently operating, as well as think about how we might build on that for this new home.
Well, thank you for considering that.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Nice meeting all of you.
All right. Commissioners, moving on here is at the consent agenda, which will require a roll call vote due to item 5C. Do we have a motion on consent? Commissioner Smith.
I vote that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, do we have a second? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Second, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments? Okay. City Clerk, if I could have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Larson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. All right, that brings us to our one new business item for the evening. I'm probably going to say this wrong, but it's all right. How do I say that? Kuma? Okay. Kuma Sana LLC concessionary lease. City Clerk, if you could give us the background, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Kuma Sauna LLC has requested the City Commission lease a 14 by 20 foot section of the parking lot recently donated to the city by We Energies to it to provide a Lake Superior sauna experience for residents and visitors. The term of this lease would be from June 27th, 2023 through August 31st, 2023, or when dredging of the mouth of the Dead River begins, whichever occurs first. Over the course of the last 5 years, many businesses have approached the city looking to use lake access locations, municipal beaches, or municipal parks. Community services staff have handled each situation independently, but with a consistent approach and with advisory input from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The main priority has been to ensure that public green spaces and beaches remain open to the general public to the greatest extent possible. With each situation, staff have considered whether there are other locations from which the business can operate that do not infringe upon the public use, if the service would be desired by the public, and whether the service is currently available elsewhere. If the proposed service is desired, access to the natural resource on public land is needed for the service, and we have a viable proposal from a business that has been properly vetted. We've offered short-term trial permits or leases, then issued a request for proposal for that service thereafter. This has allowed competition while limiting the entities utilizing public land. Kuma Sauna LLC approached community services staff to determine if there was an appropriate location along the lakefront where residents and visitors would be able to take a sauna and then jump into Lake Superior. Staff determined that the parking lot across from the We Energies power plant site might be a suitable location. This lot is underutilized and has appropriate proximity to the lake. Staff determined that access to the lake is necessary for this service, and public access to the lake or beach would not be impeded by the business at this location. The Parks and Rec Advisory Board reviewed the proposal and voted to recommend the City Commission approve a lease agreement for the opportunity. The city's Harbor Advisory Committee reviewed the proposal and recommended against it. The Marquette Fire Department does not have concerns about the operation of the sauna on city property or the water features of the area. Previous signs at the site belong to We Energies and were specific to their operations. Individuals swimming at this location do so at their own risk, as the beach and adjacent Clark Lambros Beach are not guarded. There are several trails through the dune grasses at the location. If the agreement is approved, staff will work with the Superior Watershed Partnership to install better signage related to these trails. If approved, this lease agreement will serve as a trial period for this recreational opportunity. If there are no issues with the service and the public desires the service, staff will advertise a request for proposals in 2024 for a sole concessionaire for this service. The city charter requires all lease agreements to have 2 reads, and this is the second read of this item. Fiscal effect: the general fund will receive $140 per month during this trial period. Recommendation: approve the lease agreement with Kuma Sauna LLC and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign it. Alternatives: as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. And I believe we have some additional background from staff. I'm looking over to our city manager here.
Just one more other quick point on this one is we did have some of our city staff look at if we had any other data based off of recent studies or surveys that are done in conjunction with maybe even the dredging project. And there's not something specifically addressing the currents per se, but they did have some other surveys that were done that did not necessarily show a strong current in that way, but did have some of that confirmation on that buildup of sand, but looks like it's over a very slow period, and then also is something that does not necessarily signify a large current in that area. So really looking at more of a less of on the current, but more on what that buildup of that sand or that dune is. Also on that note, I also wanted to point out that with that dredging project, there will be some disturbance of that dune grass in that area, and we will have to work to restore that as well. And maybe that's where there is a great opportunity to build up additional signage and pathways in the correct way. No other comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this item? Commissioner Hanley?
I move that we approve the lease agreement with Kumasauna LLC and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign it.
Thank you. And do we have a second? Commissioner Smith?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Hanley?
Looking through it and all the work that staff has done to find a beach that they find suitable, I am comfortable with a trial period at this exact location. Is it ideal? No, but it's also one of the things that we have to watch out for is putting these things in the highly trafficked areas as well. We want to make sure that we're taking into account everyone's access to the beach, but I'm very comfortable with this at this point.
Okay. Commissioner Smith?
I would second what Commissioner Hanley said, and also that while that may not be a popular swimming location, it is an area that people do and can swim at. I understand that it may not be the most desirable location for either the sauna or for swimming, but I think it would be, if you're taking a nice hot sauna, you could find a safe area to get in the water. And I think it's a good trial run. And I like to think about the entrepreneurship side, and sometimes we kind of have to live in the gray area and test it out and see how it goes, and then hone it in for the next year. So I think it's worth it to try. I don't think the risk to life is any greater than anyone swimming on our beaches any other day. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Rodway?
I just want to point out and I guess ask a question to city staff. That area currently now, as was pointed out by the city clerk, the signs that are up, they were not placed by the city, and currently there's nothing stopping people from swimming there, I understand. Is that true?
So from our understanding, those signs were placed by We Energies, and were in relation to in regards to their operations, which was not safe at that time when we had that discharge into the lake or into the river, into the lake. It is recommended that those signs do be removed, and our signs would be placed up that talk about swimming at your own risk with no lifeguard on duty, if they were to proceed. And that would happen probably regardless of whether the sauna is up or not.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, this is an agenda item that I've been very conflicted with because of the different opinions on safety. It's a location that I understand was recommended by our Parks and Rec staff and vetted by the fire department, and the fire department is really responsible for waterfront safety, and they did not find any real concerns. The Parks and Rec Advisory Committee made a motion to support the concept, and think of that, it was the concept of the business, but not necessarily the site. And that's what's in their minutes. And then the Harbor Advisory Committee did not seem to like it at all and felt that that there were some significant safety issues. So I actually visited this site 3 times, 2 times today, once with someone who is very knowledgeable about water safety and about that area. And that person did not feel it was a good idea. Then I thought, well, that's crazy. I should go back and try it out. So I walked into it, and I did not find a place that I would have felt comfortable swimming in, mostly for the drop-up reasons. One is like right there, where it's about 8 inches away from where you might step in. And I recognize that we're considering this a short-term trial lease and to see if it's a business that we want to allow on public space at the shore. And I'm not against the business concept at all, or the trial. I'm also well aware that we, nor the business, can guarantee any safety in the water, and that those who choose to swim are doing so at their own risk. But yet I'm still very concerned that we have the conflicting messages about water safety, and for this reason, I'm going to decline to support leasing the proposed land for this purpose.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments from the Commissioner Stonehouse?
I, too, have been very conflicted regarding the site and to a point, the concept. We spent probably 4 or 5 years ago now, made a huge community effort about drowning water safety. I mean, it was huge. The effort that the university, coupled with Northern Michigan University, Marquette General Hospital at the time, because of the drownings we had at the lakeshore, people swimming in locations that they should not have been swimming in necessarily. And we were able to put that genie back into the bottle and have had a very safe lakeshore, I think, in the intervening years. I am concerned with anything that would affect that negatively. And this, I think, is an example of that. I'm also a little bit concerned, at least curious, that a sauna, normally when you finish the sauna, if you're in the winter, you go out and jump in a snowbank. If you're in a lakeside home, you normally run out and jump in the lake. In either case, you have lots of stuff around you, lots of water, in an environment that is sunned and shocking to the body and really does spark your eyeball a little bit. I think that water being shallow makes it more difficult to get that same effect. So in terms of trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, I don't think that's a good location for it. I do take consideration of the two groups that are study committees, which is why we have them. Didn't like the idea at all. Both came back negatively. So I take that to honor, and my vote, gentlemen and ladies, will be against the project. Thank you for your time.
Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Larson?
I've been a little bit conflicted on this. I understand it's a trial run, and it could certainly go through, and then maybe it doesn't work out, where we decide that it's or they decide that it's not acceptable for there because it hasn't been a swimming beach previously. Even with those signs up, I don't know that it has really been a swimming location for individuals that have been there due to dangerous currents and drop-off locations. So that's kind of that's the message that I think the community has received over all these years since We Energies has been there. And then then on the other kind of the slightly, maybe it doesn't have a huge financial impact to the city. So it's 50 cents a square foot that it comes out to. So while we have much larger concerns overall, I don't know that that's a factor to where you should consider those dollar amounts. So honestly, I've been very conflicted as far as which way it should go. But historically, that not being a swimming beach is something that I've been kind of concerned with as well. So I'll just kind of leave it at that with my uncertainty.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis, then Commissioner Hanley?
No, mine's with him first.
Okay, Commissioner Hanley?
I just had a question. Obviously the biggest part that we're having a problem with here is the beach itself. Is there an option to move them to a different beach?
So from my understanding, the location was selected so that it would have minimal impact on general beachgoers, as this is a for-profit type operation for the business. And we heard pretty loud and clear about wanting to make sure that we don't necessarily commercialize our lakefront. So that was kind of at the first really look at where we can put it in a rather underutilized area. So at this point in the timeline, looking at an alternative location would be very difficult for the season, and we would most likely not be able to go ahead and evaluate that properly. And then also leases do require 2 reads publicly here, or two considerations. And then also, just for context, leases of real property do require a affirmative vote of at least 5 members of the city commission as well. So thought that was a good idea to mention that too. But the timeline, going back to your original question, is not really necessarily conducive for looking at alternative locations at this moment.
Commissioner Radway?
I'd like to ask our city attorney if there's any legal risk if somebody were to get injured or something, the unthinkable happened and something happened there. Is there any legal risk to the city? Obviously, I'm assuming Kumasana will have to carry liability insurance. Is this something that we need to worry about?
So they are required to provide liability insurance, which is attached to the lease in your agenda packet. Additionally, they are naming the city as an additional insured. I guess one of the things I hadn't really thought through, and I'm not entirely positive how it would play out, is that insurance is for their operations as a sauna. That isn't necessarily for people then going into our public waters, but our risk would not be any higher than it would be for any other beach that's listed as no lifeguard on duty, swim at your own risk. So,
sure. The reason I do ask is obviously, as Commissioner Stonehouse has kind of pointed out, how traditional sauna is going to work. It's going to be a very invigorating thing, and like I said, if something were to happen, people do have a tendency to sue things, but something happened where somebody had a heart attack, and, you know, they may make the argument that this happened because of the sauna, which is being leased by the city of Marquette. And I don't know that I'm comfortable going down that rabbit hole, but I would be more comfortable if I heard that we had some sort of immunity from that, but.
Well, I mean, in general, we do have governmental immunity as long as it is related to a function of government, and our public beachfront is that.
Okay.
So,
It stays public, though, just to be clear, since we're leasing it out ultimately.
we're not leasing the lake and the beachfront. We're leasing a small
Parking
space in
lot.
a parking lot.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne.
Any other comments? Okay. Tidbit I'll throw in here. You know, I was a UP champion swimmer in high school. I was a lifeguard. I have the highest combat water survival certification with the Army that the Army has. I personally wouldn't swim in this area. With that being said, however, our fire department, which I have a lot of faith in, is not concerned about it, and I don't think anyone from the fire department is here, so I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot, city manager. Do you know exactly what their assessment consisted of for evaluating the safety of the area?
I wish I could say that I knew exactly what they did, especially if they go in the water or anything like that. But unfortunately, I don't have that level of detail, nor do I want to assume.
Okay.
My apologies.
It's all right. Thank you. All right. Commissioner Larson?
Hypothetically, if it were approved, would the city be placing signage prior to operation, or removing signage and placing signage prior to operation?
That would be a priority before operation, yes.
Okay. I don't believe that's a roll call. All right, if there's nothing else from the commission, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes?
Yes.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
I believe that was
Can we get the votes on that, Your Honor?
4 noes.
Who were the no votes? Sorry.
That would be Commissioner Stonehouse, Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Commissioner Ottaway, Commissioner Larson. Okay. And that brings us to comments from the commission. We're going to start things off.
Public comment. Public comment.
Excuse me. Getting a little ahead of myself here. We're going to start our second public comment session in the evening. Again, as a reminder, public comment may not exceed 3 minutes per person. And please state your name and physical address if you've not done so already this evening. Anyone for public comment?
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. I want to compliment everyone on this commission and every committee and every staff member who looked at this situation and gave it its best evaluation. It's very hard sometimes to weigh the pros and cons of a situation when people bring in what sounds like great ideas. And this is not an attack on anyone. It's just that when people think of that area who grew up here, we remember a young boy who drowned there. That's when those signs went up. And the idea that enough has changed so that the sign should come down so that this business could operate didn't match with the common sense. And I wanted to thank everybody for doing their job. And if you disagree with the outcome, you still did your job. And I mean that. And I don't think this business is going to go away. I think they're going to find another spot because everybody said it's a great idea. We just need another spot. So thank you for paying so much time and attention to all the inputs you had. Secondly, a little bit of explanation. Professor Putman's work now can proceed. The state did a switch of the paperwork required to grow hemp. And so she has for the better part of the past 6 weeks, working with a nice lady named Molly in the industrial hemp office of the state of Michigan government to proceed with the correct paperwork, which was obtained this past week. Not only has Molly been very interested in the work she's doing, she's already reserved time for a conference for Professor Putman to present her work this fall in November. And this is another huge step forward. You listen to the Venetmar NMU people. This work is just part of what Professor Putman does in terms of medicinal plant chemistry. I told a friend of mine the other day, it's like working with Edison when he was trying to figure out the filaments. It's like working with Job when he's trying to figure out the iPhone. It's happening here in Marquette. It's a very good thing. And if at any time anybody in the commission wants to see the farm and see what we're doing, we'll be happy to take you there. In terms of the need for the special account, it simply has to do with the funding for this project. We didn't have time to get grant money, so we're asking individuals, and I have a lady who's supporting this because she's in favor of clean environments, and she literally said to me the other day, who do I make the check out to and who do I send it to? So it's a real thing, and I'm hoping that the city finance department can work that way through so we can get a certified lab set up. So yes, you were here tonight for the beginning of hemp work in the field in Marquette, Michigan, by a professor at Northern. This is one of those nights in the history of the city that will live forever. Thank you very much.
Do you have anyone else for public comment?
Hello, Brandon Frisk, 411 East Ridge Street. I also wanted to say thank you to the commission. We actually met with Margaret and some other members of the community after our initial meeting to kind of go over some of the safety concerns and found that some of them were actually very valid, and we worked with Andrew in the Parks and Rec department to come up with some possible alternatives to locations that we can still possibly operate in. So we will kind of go back to the drawing board and present some new concepts, and we'll be coming back. But yeah, and we just really do appreciate the people that are passionate here that, you know, want people who to be safe and are just looking out for the community. And so are we. You know, part of the reason we built our company to be mobile is, you know, we are trialing things and we're testing things and we can move. So I do appreciate everybody who like has really, really smart, you know, risk assessment, and I also appreciate the yes votes, so thank you. But yeah, we'll be back soon, hopefully, and we just really appreciate everyone who take the time to review our proposal and who has taken the time to give us some really valuable feedback. So thank you.
Anyone else for public comment this evening? Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Seeing none, public comment is closed. Now, that'll bring us to comments from the commission. And I believe I have things starting off with Commissioner Stonehouse.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple of things. We had a great peek tonight at what the VETS facility could be. I think it's truly inspiring, and hopefully the whole package can come together the way it was briefed. It would be a good thing, certainly for our area veterans, as well as I think the state of Michigan. And really can be a wonderful example of how communities, state, and the VA can work together to provide for the men and women who are our veterans today. On their behalf, though, for those that are in Jacobetti, I would ask folks not to fire fireworks off on the 4th of July in the vicinity of Jacobetti. We have men and women who've experienced combat, who do have PDSR, and it would not certainly set up a healthy situation. So I ask you, out of respect for the people that gave you the freedom you were celebrating with a firework, don't do it near the building. Don't do it in that area of town, please. On behalf of the veterans in the facility, I'm asking you just not to do it on the 4th of July in that area. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Commissioner Hanley?
Thank you. I mostly just wanted to touch on the awesome 4th of July celebrations we have coming up in our city. The city, as of course, is always putting on a great show, and I'm really excited this year about the extra portion that we have here with the laser light show that we'll get to have. I do believe it will be going on in conjunction with the fireworks as well as the day after on the 4th itself. And for a lot of the comments that I've gotten and that I've seen about worrying about the 4th of July fireworks being on the 3rd, it is for good cause. It is easier to have the police force still out there when we have the 4th closed down in the case of a rain delay on the 3rd, so you can move them. It's better for people who, a lot of people get the day off on the 4th, so staying up really late for the fireworks is super helpful. And so it really does have a lot of added benefits to it, as well as the laser light show is really cool, and you should check it out.
Commissioner Larson.
I like lasers too. A lot of exciting things happening, in Marquette from, the sneak peek we had today of the veterans facility that could be. And, I certainly understand there's some details and letters of intent and things like that that need to be discussed amongst staff and otherwise, but certainly looking forward to having that move through. Also looking forward to, upcoming festivities. Summer's here. We had a great art week, and other things like the social district have opened up in Marquette. So a lot of things to kind of look forward to this summer, and I think we're doing okay.
Commissioner Rodway.
Yeah, just real quick, two quick things. First, to our Kuma Sauna friends, thank you for your professionalism. I think the partnership that you could potentially have with the city moving forward is a good one. I think that this is a great idea. I think that the community is behind it. I think we ultimately want what's best for, the people that are going to be patronizing your business and your business ultimately. So I urge you guys to continue with this and, let us know if there's anything we can do to help. I think it's just a wonderful thing, and I think this ultimately may be the best decision for you. Secondly, just real quick, wanted to congratulate Commissioner Hanley on her albatross. If you guys have not heard, Commissioner Hanley made an albatross at Gray Walls in a golf outing that Commissioner Smith and I were able to see her celebrate, and yeah, that is a 2 on a par 5 on a golf course, which is like more rare than a hole-in-one. It was unbelievable. So it was the greatest thing she will ever accomplish in her life, and she has a child. So I just want to say that. But that is about it. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Well, that's kind of hard to follow. Ann Zerby, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really good to hear of the plans that you're looking at, and it appeared to me that you have spent time here in Marquette and kind of understand what the people in the community are looking for and wanting, so thank you. And to Professor Putman or Leslie Williams, whichever way you want, I am impressed, and I'm really looking forward to your research project, and I'm really grateful that someone like you is here in Marquette and at Northern Michigan University and doing much forward thinking in terms of solving some of those potential chemicals in our environment. So thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. We had some interesting buzzwords this meeting. Sauna, veterans, innovation. It's all good, but it's kind of indicative of like local government, right? To Kuma Sauna folks, I hope you're able to find something that works. I really think it's an interesting and innovative idea. Saunas are something that not everyone here has access to, and I think it'd be great. It would be a private industry, but the public could pay and have access to that. Even if they don't have one in their homes. It's part of our culture. So I'm hoping you can figure it out. And if there's a way that I can help brainstorm, I'm happy to do that. Last week, we had a whole bunch of new and exciting things in the city of Marquette. Well, Art Week, it was a new theme, home. I want to thank Marquette Arts and Culture for putting on so many incredible events. I know I was able to attend a few. My daughter went to a few. It was great. We had the first week of the social district, which is where you can get a drink at select businesses downtown and walk around with it legally, which feels very strange, but it's true. And I encourage folks to get out there and test it out. It's a great way to support small businesses and your local restaurants and bars downtown. And then the farmers market had a street fair on Wednesday night, the first one ever, and that was a huge success in my mind. So firstly, I wanted to thank the police department because they were everywhere at those events
And I already sent their department a kudos, but I just wanted to say it publicly too. Everywhere they were positive, they were around, they were being friendly, and that's just so important for the culture of our town, knowing that we're feeling safe and supported by your police department and in a non-threatening way. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. And then also to thank our Public Works Department, because they're they're behind the scenes. You don't see them setting up barricades and making changes with these big events that we have and other events upcoming. So huge thank you to them. And I know they've shifted their schedule around a little bit to be able to accommodate some things. So I appreciate that. And to our DDA for putting on incredible events that are really adding to the character of our town. And then on that note, I know Commissioner Hanley touched on it, but if folks don't know, the City Fest / Food Fest starts July 1 for City Fest, and then the Food Fest is July 2 through 4 down at the Lower Harbor. And then the fireworks, as Commissioner Hanley mentioned, are on July 3rd. The parade is at 2 p.m. on July 4th, and then the laser light show is on July 4th. So that's all out on, you can find it online, but that's coming up very quickly. So looking forward to seeing people out and about and enjoying our beautiful city. Thank you.
I'm just gonna echo all of that. Couple quick things though. I thank you for our, what was the phrasing? Maybe veteran home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like not a marina thing. Very optimistic, and I guess I'm glad that you came and presented to us today, and I'm hoping that we can find a way to keep that veterans home in Marquette, but obviously we have a lot of work still to go with that. I want to say a lot on that, I just can't. To our sauna folks, I really hope you come back with maybe a revamped and maybe different location if possible. And if that can't happen this year, I'm sorry, but hopefully at least we'll see you next year then. To our professors over here, I'm planning on chatting with City Manager Kovacs and our CFO to even explore what that looks like, because I'll be honest, I have no idea. But I'm just letting you know someone is going to actually look into it for you. So. And last thing, just to really embarrass her, it is my wife's birthday today, so happy birthday, Ashley. And with, I appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to our city manager.
Sure. Just to touch really quick on the account or the funding for shipping some of these samples out. There's a couple of other steps that we have to go through. Typically when a government entity accepts funds, it is for very specific purposes. So there's a little bit of red tape that has to be considered, I guess, before we look at really going forward with that. So some of that delay in any of those conversations really has to do with some technicalities and some information. So if it doesn't happen with the city, we will certainly work with you to get an alternative avenue. Because this is very important. I wanted to just give some major kudos to the staff within Arts and Culture. So Tina Morin, Amelia Pruitt, and Tristan Luma, who have spent so many months planning and so many hours in the past week really putting on a phenomenal event for our community. Art Week is not necessarily tailored for tourists. It certainly attracts them. It is getting a lot of attention statewide and even beyond that, but also for our residents. The programming that they put on, especially during Art Week, it is highlighted, especially during Art Week, is really in partnership with the city and is in partnership with the city and the arts and culture community. It is a time to celebrate our talents here, to highlight those talents, and to really adapt that and really get it into the community. So they spent long days and really pulled off an amazing set of events last week. So I saw many of the commissioners there, and I was able to participate in a lot of those events, but in particular those cultural conversations, which are really core to our community, and really listen to some of those folks that come in and talk and really try to learn what's important and how we adapt and communicate that through the arts. So a phenomenal event. Again, if you can't get it on your calendar soon enough, we'll get those dates out for you. Again, thank you, commissioners, for that support. I know it meant a lot to arts and culture. And one quick reminder on the 4th of July, those piers that we have, which there is a ribbon cutting this week, unfortunately will be closed off for the fireworks. They are in the blast zone. Because we have such great fireworks, that blast zone actually covers those piers. So please respect those boundaries when we do put those barricades up. They may have a special guest serving as security if you let a special Karen do that. So please mind that and be prepared for that. Those are going to be off limits to watch the fireworks. And the lasers will be on the other side of the ORDOC. And lastly, I do believe that Commissioner Hanley was playing my golf ball at that time. So really, honestly, if we're going to talk about this,
It's possible.
may have been my fault, but that is
You're the second.
certainly fine. Got you there. So thank you. No further comments.
All right, and with that, we are adjourned at 7:50 PM.